Okay, Eddie, you're Nick ready to go? Putting you through.
Okay. Hi, Nick. How you doing?
How are you doing, Eddie? I mean, normally you say how you doing to people, and it's normally just a pleasantry. But with you, we need to know whether you need hospitalising at this stage.
Not hospitalising, but I'd like to stop this thing. I got 43 minutes to go. So I've had to speed up because I've got this German show in German after 7 p.m. London time, and my German is not so strong, so I still have to. There's certain key phrases I need. I can say, you know, how are you? And this es geht mir gut, and that's better. It's schön, and the weather is good. But sometimes, if you want to say, I ran past a big house in the country, then you have to get that right. You have to learn a little phrase until your German gets good enough that you can just knock it together. And that gets tricky, so I have to learn those little phrases. And I haven't done the German gig for a wee while, whereas my French is easier. But anyway, because we're running Vienna today. But enough of that. Enough of these things. Tell us, walking with the wounded.
You are absolutely nuts. I remember seeing the first marathon you ran in that, when you first did that thing where you ran to Wales and then you ran to Scotland and then you ran back again. And
yeah.
You stopped on the way down towards Wales on the first marathon. You stopped for an ice cream. And a pint of beer, and so you've not run marathons before, and now you can't stop.
Well, I'm doing them because, well, you know, you've got to do something. If you're trying to raise money, you can't just say, I'm going to walk down the shops, buy a burger, and come back. You know, no one's going to sponsor you for it. You know, you've got to go out above and beyond the Call of Duty to try and get people to say, stuff it, I'll text in a tenner or I'll donate something. So that's what I'm trying to do. But at this moment I'd like to be at 6:15, because then I'll be just about finished.
Sorry to jump in, I'm just watching you just at the tail end of the treadmill there, just you're going a little far back, just FYI.
Yeah, because I've had to turn the speed up because I've had to stop so many times today for something more loo brakes and my toe on my left foot is weird. But anyway, tell us about yourself. So you're walking with the Wounded Ambassador, yeah? Because that's good.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, what happens is, as you know, that various different people ask you to be involved with their charities at various stages, and every now and again you dip a toe in the water with a charity, or you turn up to something and something sort of catches your attention, and you end up getting sort of drawn more and more into a charity, so that you end up spending a lot of time. And some years ago, I met a guy called Ed Parker, who was at that stage running Walking with the Wounded, and they were doing a lot of work with veterans. But Ed's nephew, basically, his nephew had been in the armed forces and had been in an explosion where he lost both the lower parts of his both legs. And when his nephew came back to this country to trying to start a new life, he felt that there wasn't enough there for them to give him the opportunities and the start that he deserved to start to build a new life. So we sort of formed Walking with the Wounded, and I met him because we were looking at that stage. We knew that a lot of troops were being drawn down from Afghanistan and Iraq. I'm going to talk a lot, by the way, in a chance to give you a chance not to talk.
Exactly. So you carry on. This is completely fine. I'm going to let you run.
So basically, he started the walking with the Wounded, and I always say to people, it's interesting because you get an interesting reaction towards our troops. A lot of people are worried about why we were where we were and what the troops were doing in Afghanistan or Iraq or so on and so forth. And I always say to people that if you have an issue with that, then you take that up with the politicians that send our young people there, and that's a conversation to have with them. As far as our young people are concerned, many of them off of estates in Hull and Wrexham and various other, 60% of our troops are drawn down from the north of England, but the southwest and various other parts of the country as well. And they were out there genuinely believing that and working they thought, to protect us and do the job they were asked to do. Having been asked to do that, if they then become injured, or whether it be physically or mentally injured, when they return to this country, having served the country and having done what was asked as young people, there should be a system in place then to try and give them opportunities to restart their lives and move on and get a good job and get a home and start to build a life again. And our veterans actually have very specific skills and abilities and that could be used and taken advantage of by this country towards a positive future. So Ed Parker and Walking with the Wounded at that stage were trying to build a charity that both gave them opportunities to start again, but also for the country to take advantage of these amazing skills. And it was something that I went to speak to him because I wanted to do something, and we wanted to do something on DIY that actually represented all of these young people that were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, and he talked about the housing difficulties they had. So I met him actually for a cup of coffee in London and said, what do you need? He said, an outward bound centre. I said, well, I don't think you can build that because we'd never be able to sell it to the audience. What else do you need? He said, well, a training centre and accommodation and offices in the north of England so that we can start to help some of the people in the north of England. So we went to various different councils around the north of England and said, give us a street that we can build in. And in the end, Manchester were one of the most proactive, and they offered us basically, they had about 23 houses that were sort of semi-derelict in a street that was a tough street by anybody's standards. I mean, to give you an idea, we had to do a needle sweep in the area before we could go in there and start to build. So, and actually, when we went to have a look at it for the first time, one of the occupants of one of the houses there came out and said, "Are you going to build something in here?" And I said, "Well, yeah, hopefully." And he said, "Well, if you can do just one house, it would help." So anyway, we went there and we did the 23 houses, which we built into houses. There's about 36 houses, but we made them into 23 houses by knocking some together in a street for veterans to go and live in. And whilst we were there, we did up the fronts and the windows and the doors and all the 62 houses that were in the street, and revamped the whole street and put in fast fibre, Wi-Fi and new electric and water and all the other things to basically make the street a nicer place to come. So there are now something like 23 families living there, but that street then went on over the next 4.5 years to process, get on for 500 veterans off the street and into accommodation and into job opportunities and training and so on and so forth. So the charity was very proactive in that respect, and I liked what they were doing and how they were going about doing it, and I thought it was a really clever way to go forward, because I think, as you pointed out, raising funds for charity at the moment is difficult. So it's important that charities, when they do get funds, find a way to try and make it circular if they can. You know, so it cost about £3.5 million of private money, companies chucking in to do the DIY and to build this street. It's been audited the last few years, and it saved the country 800 and something thousand last year and 1.4 million predicted this year. And so essentially, it's basically paid for itself in 5 years. So charity-wise, that's quite good, because it means that you're not having to constantly go on. Hand up from the man on the treadmill.
I have. How did you get to that? Because I love the idea. Friends of my dad, in '71 we went out to Canada, and an old school friend of my dad was building his own house. So I love the idea of that. I have a number of ideas in my head which I've never done. How did you get to the point where you could look at that? One, the finance, and two, the building of it. Had you done anything like that before? Just tell me how you came into that, because it's a beautiful thing that you've done. So I'm just curious. It looks like you just turned up and did it, but there must be a build-up to that, your skill set before that.
Well, it was sort of accidental through the BBC, to be honest. So we started making a programme called DIY, which in the old days used to be, people used to ring in, if they'd done DIY in their house and made a mess of it, they would ring us, and we would pick three, the audience would vote one of the three people that asked for help, for us to go and fix it, and the following week we'd do it up, and then we'd have another three people that people could vote on.
So were you an expert? You were an expert in DIY? Is that where you came from?
No, in actual fact, it was a building thing. I worked on building sites. I played rugby around the world, and I worked in newsrooms. But previous to that, I'd worked on building sites to make a living, and so I knew the building industry. And what we had was a bunch of builders. That weirdly, DIY is one of those programs that's a sort of an odd misnomer, really, because we were there as builders to go in and fix what DIYers had made a mess of. So it was an SOS for DIYers. We didn't do DIY. We came in to do construction. Anyway, we did this for about 8 years. But it became apparent with some of the families that we were building for that that we were doing one room for them, but they had a child with a disability or whatever it happens to be, and the rest of the house wasn't suitable and was never going to get done. So we said to the BBC, look, builders are always saying they'd like to join in on our programme. We reckon we could do an entire house for somebody that was in particular need, and that everybody would come and work for free, and we reckon we could get the materials for free. So about 12, 13 years ago, the BBC said, well, we'll let you do one to see if it works, which we did up in Anglesey. And on the first day, about 300 builders turned up to join in.
Wow.
So and all the various people in the area donated the material. So we built this first one, and then we've never made the other programme since. We've always done the big build, and we've been doing it for 12, 13 years now, and we've built somewhere in the region of £18 million worth of homes and respite centres and homes for veterans and places that look after children with disability and life-limiting illnesses. And when we built a Grenfell, when the Grenfell fire happened, within a year, we built a community centre with a kitchen where they could cook for each other, with counselling rooms so that people could get the counselling they really needed, and a boxing centre for the youth of the area, because there used to be a boxing gym in the lower level of Grenfell. And when we asked the community and families what they really wanted this gym back, somewhere where all their kids could be together, because it taught them nutrition and discipline and kept them off the streets and kept them involved in stuff. So we were able to do that for them, and DIY West became this thing that where we could build extraordinary buildings, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million pound builds, all of which, with all the people coming to work on it, working for free, and all of the materials donated. And so we could do bigger and bigger and bigger things. Just this year, we did one in lockdown there's an amazing charity down in Swansea called Surfability, started by a couple of surfers who look after, they get basically children with severe disabilities and brain injuries out in the surf on surfboards they've developed these surfboards that have got like seats screwed onto them. Wow. That the child sits in, or the young adult sits in, and then they surf them in. And it's an extraordinary thing, but they've been doing that for the last 5 years out of a bus stop, a bricked up bus stop, not a bus station by the way, a bus stop on the beach. So we went down there this year and built them an £800,000 surfboard shaped building, which they can now operate out of, which has got changing rooms and storage for their surfboards and showers and all kinds of other things as well. So we can do all of these things, and we realised that we can bring that to bear on any given charity if they need a building or they need a facility, and for people's homes. So we tend to do it a lot for families who have through no fault of their own, find themselves in circumstances where they have a child with a disability or an adult with a disability and they can't use the home properly. So we get volunteers to come in and do that and rebuild for them. So Walking with the Wounded, we did that for it, raised the profile. Those two shows that we did for Walking with the Wounded, where we featured one guy called Lamin who had lost both legs and one arm in one show, and in the other show we featured a guy who had PTSD. And luckily, the thing is with that, is the nice way about this programme is that if you were to make a programme about PTSD, you'd probably get about 1 million people watching on BBC One. But because it was a DIY West where we featured his story, it got 9 million viewers.
Yes.
So suddenly 9 million people understand,
Yes, that's a very good point. You've got to. I mean, I'm thinking about this. I'm doing basically a 6-hour podcast here, and if I talk about people having a really rotten time and COVID situations all the time, it gets too much, and who's going to watch 6 hours of that or listen to 6 hours? So you've got to try and go around the back of it, But I just think...
I mean, you and I have both been involved with Comic Relief over the years, and what the great trick with Comic Relief was that you signed up for an evening of comedy sketches and entertainment, high quality comedy sketches and entertainment, which was laced with various films that you made. You made a run. You did, in fact, a running film, didn't you, in South Africa? And I did stuff in India.
I did the Sport Relief ones. I never did. Well, I did a couple of things at Comic Relief, but they couldn't really use me because they wanted TV stars, because they were reaching out things, and I refused to do comedy on television. So,
Yeah.
but Sport Relief, yeah, that was the run around the UK, the 43 in the UK, the 27 in South Africa. Those are the ones I did on it. So
Ending up at the Mandela
Yes.
place at the end.
yeah, did you say I did a double marathon on the last day because I dropped a marathon on the way, but that was
What's really interesting, no one's ever talked about, and I only say this because as a program maker myself, one of the extraordinary things about your run around the UK, because at that stage I was considering doing a run for Sport Relief in the Marathon des Sardes, the one across the desert.
yeah.
And I'd always said that I would never run a marathon because I hate the whole idea of running a marathon, and it's just not me at all. I played rugby, and people talk about the endorphin rush that you get. But I used to go these 7-mile runs every day to try and keep fit for rugby during that, and I never got an endorphin rush. I hated every second of every minute of every hour that I ever ran.
I must say I don't really enjoy it either, but I believe it's elemental. It's visceral, and I'm really struggling now. And I've got to do this show in German in an hour. But hopefully I'm doing stuff that makes people go, "What, that idiot's doing that?" You know, because I think I look quite ordinary. Some people look quite special, and you think, well, they will do that, but I don't look like I'm going to run marathon after marathon. So.
But the thing is, I think, Eddie, what I was going to say was, what was extraordinary about that first one that you did around Britain, is that he got to the place, and I had people involved with making that film, very friends of mine who were involved with making that film for him. And they said it became almost impossible to represent the distance that you were running, because after you'd got to a certain point, you'd have like an entire day's marathon represented by 2 shots of you running across the hillside.
Yeah.
There was so much to get into the film. And it was just such a ridiculous distance. And I remember saying to people afterwards, to be honest, it's difficult to, you're always looking to try and top that for Comic Relief or do something for Sport Relief that goes, okay, well, David Williams swam down a river, or, there was the bike ride. But once you've done that many marathons in that many days, unless I'm going to go to the moon or climb Everest, and I'm not even sure that would be more difficult than what you did, it was kind of game, set and match to you.
Well, I think David Williams kicked it off because I was thinking of doing something big, and then he did it. But the second one I did was shorter, only 27 in South Africa, but the temperature thing really hit me up to 41 degrees. And then I was taken to the hospital twice, and I dropped a marathon. And so doing the double marathon on the last day, they need drama for this. And there was enough drama in this double bloody marathon. It was, you talk about hating running. Imagine 11 hours and 5 minutes of hating it. And out of that 11 hours and 5 minutes I was euphoric. There was a middle bit, around 30k to go, where I thought, I think I can do this. And I had this rush of endorphins or something. And then after that, it was back into the trudge, as this one has been today. It's been tough. And it was just grim. I had to get faster at the end. I had to go from I'll show you the speed. This is 7.5. So I did the whole marathon, 11 hours, about 10 hours at this speed. The last hour, I went up to this. I'll show you. This is what 10 is. I was doing this for an hour.
But that's what the marathon runners that you see in the Olympics that run at that sort of pace.
I think that
when I was a kid, I used to watch people. I always remember people like Kip Kano was the famous marathon runner, wasn't he?
Yes, indeed. They are going incredibly fast. They're going even faster than that. Because what's 10? 10 would do a 4-hour marathon, and they're doing even faster than that. But just jumping up from a speed that you've been going at to another one that's faster at the end is not fun. And so I'm with you.
It's amazing what you're doing, and it's amazing for all the charities involved, and obviously ones that I'm involved with, fantastic. All the other ones that you're involved with, it's wonderful news. And as you say, you get drawn into doing things for charities, and you're just sitting there thinking, what can I do? How can I make this difference? So I've been joining in with I did 12 years doing Saturday night quiz shows, so I've been pimping myself out to various charities, like to be their quiz master for the evening, having been on Saturday night doing that. Something at least I could do. is be your quizmaster. So I've done that for various people for donations and things as well.
Yeah.
I just think I'm going to try and distract you a little bit actually from it, just with it, because it came to mind that I keep on, you know the track Keep On Running?
Right. Keep on running.
Yeah, exactly. It's Betsy Davis with Keep On Running, Keep On Hiding. Some fine day I'm gonna be the one, etc. I'm not going to sing anymore because there's actually, I did an album a couple of years ago and there's now a restraining order on me ever singing in public again. But I thought it might interest you to look at the lyrics for these things, because in years gone by we never really looked at the lyrics for these particular things, and I just thought I might try and entertain you with the lyrics. So the lyrics for this song go, keep on running, keep on hiding. One fine day I'm going to be the one to make you understand. It then goes on, everyone's talking about me, makes me feel so bad. Everyone's laughing at me, makes me feel so bad. Keep on running, keep on hiding, running from my arms. This is a stalker song. It's not actually...
Yes, I must admit, I've never looked at it. You know, there's a Christmas one like that, when baby, it's cold outside, just one more thing. And it's got a guy who's, the woman saying, I gotta go home. And the guy is going, no, you're staying. It's actually, that one has been, it's quite a beautiful little song, but if you examine the lyrics, it just sounds all wrong.
Yeah, it's like Cliff Richard's, I'm going to lock her up in the trunk. So no big gun can steal her away. It's like, I'm not sure what they were on in those days, but all those old songs start sounding very dodgy indeed.
I think it's the music that grabs. I think the music, for my money, I do know that some people get the lyrics and they will dance on the dance floor and they will sing all the lyrics, and for some reason, maybe because of my dyslexia, poetry, lyrics, I take them in about 10%. It's 90% of the music for me. And so hopefully, well, I did do this one thing. If you ever watch, other people might have done this, but if you ever watch the Battle of the Bulge, so the Battle of the Bulge, here we are, military film, and you know the story in the Bulge in the Second World War, Henry Fonda, and there's a bit, and it's the British actor, his name's he was in Jaws. He was the great seaman in Jaws.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And you know, I mean, anyway, so he's playing the blonde-haired Nazi tank captain who's going to smash through the tanks. And at some point, they say, we're going to do this thing, Battle of the Bulge. It's the operation going through the Ardennes. And he says, I'm an experienced Panzer tank. There are no people left. He says, we got the tanks and we got the people. And here are the tank crews. And he says, they're all kids. They're all kids. What are we going to do with these kids? And then one of the kids starts singing this song, and it's a Nazi, some sort of Nazi, you know, we're going da 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 da. Anyway, it's got this music. It could well have been a piece of music that the Nazis dropped some lyrics on. Anyway, I was walking down. The point was, I was walking down the street, and I was singing this song, you know, sometime after, and I'm going, what am I singing? I know this, just to myself, not the words. Fuck, I'm singing, it's a Nazi song. And then you go, well, I better not do that. But that's because the music is actually separate from the lyrics quite often. I mean, the song that you were just reading obviously goes together, but sometimes they are written completely separately and then shoved together. So that's a weird.
Yeah, you have to be careful when you suddenly find yourself humming from your childhood. And Robert Shaw is the guy you were talking about, by the way.
Who was his name?
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw, yes, very fine actor. Very fine actor.
Fine actor. He gave a gritty look, didn't he? He had a gritty look about him.
Yeah, he was good.
And then he looked like he drank whiskey a lot.
Yeah, and the whole thing of him and Jaws being on the boat, and when they're all comparing. Then the Spanish ladies, and he's singing that song, and then they all start singing. And Roy Scheider, who was it? Roy Scheider, and
Richard
Dreyfuss, and Roy Scheider. Robert Shaw died. Richard Dreyfuss and Roy Scheider came. I was doing a play on Broadway, and they came backstage together. That was just kind of trippy. They were both. They'd obviously just said, yeah, let's go out tonight together. We'll go and see this thing, because we were getting quite buzzy. Me and Victoria Hamilton.
Your appendix scar?
No, my appendix scar. It looks okay now, but just to have them there, I thought that was kind of beautiful. And I think Roy Scheider, unfortunately, has gone. All that jazz, he's beautiful in all that jazz. And Bob Fosse film. Anyway, I'm a lover of films. But
do you get tripped out by that because you've done some amazing stuff in your time? These, you casually say there, like when I was doing a play on Broadway. I mean, as if that's like everyday kind of thing. It's extraordinary.
Well, it's, I mean, you obviously have ambition. You've done amazing things yourself. You've done things out of the box. That's what I really like. See, this is out of the box. How does this all bloody happen? But the play on Broadway, I was 7, and I wanted to be an actor, and then later on I got nominated for a Tony on Broadway. Yeah, that's a beautiful arc. It took me a bloody age to get there, but I was very happy with that, and it was it was a crazy time because we were nominated for everything, and I kind of won everything except this is my story. I won everything except the Tony. So there's the Drama Desk Award, I won that. The Critics, Outer Circle Critics, I won that. There was a Broadway.com thing, I won that. And my agent back in London said, people here are saying you're going to win the Tony. So I had this. Brian Dennehy, Long Day Journey and Night, great actor. He came and saw the show. He came backstage. He said, you're going to win it. I didn't win it. Brian got it. So I'm a little bit, I get up though, and I have Stanley Tucci and Philip Seymour Hoffman, also nominated, didn't get it. And I suddenly thought, I'm in this group. This is my group. I'm in a pretty damn good group. I don't need that award. I just want to stand next to these guys. And I said to them, they looked obviously a little bit, we didn't get that one. And I thought I needed to say something. So I said to them, I thought we'd get one each. And they went, yeah. And that was my time standing with Stanley Tucci, Philip Seymour Hoffman. And that's fine by me. We're all nominated and didn't get the same thing. I'm fine. Those guys are great.
It's amazing the way where the world brings you round and things. When I was about 18, 19, maybe a little bit older than that, I was part of an amateur dramatic group in Tunbridge Wells in Kent, and they were shooting A Room with a View. I mean, you remember the movie A Room with a View?
I do indeed.
They were shooting that down just outside a place called Chiddingfold, which is just outside. So I volunteered as an extra, and went down there, and of course, Simon Callow played the vicar in that particular thing. And the day that we filmed, they shot the scene where they all ran naked into the pond and jumped in the pond, and they talked the vicar into jumping into the pond at the time as well. And then Denham Elliott actually was in the movie, who I liked very much as an actor. In fact, I made he sort of arrived on set wearing a t-shirt and jeans and carrying a Tesco's carrier bag, which is not the way you expect to see that actor, because he was always in period costume. So it was odd to see him in that environment and looking very ordinary. Then he came out all dressed up, ready to do the scene, and sort of stood next to me. And I was determined not to say, I know who you are and I like your work, or anything as crass as that. So I tried to come up with something original to say to him. And the only thing I could think of was, because he'd arrived in jeans and a t-shirt, I sidled up to him and looked at him and said, isn't it interesting how you don't recognise actors without their clothes on? And he looked at me in slight terror, because not knowing what I was suggesting, where I'd seen him without his clothes on. Anyway, I immediately said, don't worry, and wandered off and left him alone, because I couldn't face how ridiculous what I'd said. Anyway, some years later, I go through all the various things. I too wanted to work in film, but ended up being a runner, doing news, current affairs, documentaries, factual entertainment shows. Finally get right around 9 years ago, I write a movie, which finally gets to make, the thing called Golden Years. And the cast is fantastic. I've got Virginia McKenna, I've got Sue Johnston, and I've got all kinds of people, but including Simon Callow. And during the scene, I particularly wrote a scene for him in it, where he's talking to his wife, and they've won the pools, and they're over breakfast, and they've won the pools. And he celebrates and goes mad, and he says, right, time to go back to bed, Cheryl, for a celebration. And as he turns and walks away, he's not wearing any trousers, so that he can show his arse on screen as a memento, personal memento, to the day I was filming with him back on Room with a View, however many 100 years ago it was when I first did that.
And so you've shot that happened, that's all done?
Yeah, film called Golden Years. It's out and it's went out. We did about 300 cinemas in the UK and went off around the world. Won some awards in Spain and China and various other things. So you know, it was a circular. I finally got to write the movie that I always wanted to write, and managed to get the guy from Room with a View actually in the movie amongst many others.
Well,
although weirdly, the biggest part that I've ever had in a movie myself wasn't me; it was my hair. Because when I went to do Room with a View, I had very long hair because I was playing in a rock band at the time, and they told me that to cut all my hair off so that I could appear in character. And they were paying me 50 quid a day, and I needed the money at that stage, so I said fine. But the hairdresser that on Room with a View that was looking after hair and makeup came up and offered to buy my hair from me because he said it was long enough and the right colour that he could make extensions for Helena Bonham Carter. So in Room with a View, Helena Bonham Carter is wearing my hair.
That needs to be. That's on your tombstone, I think. There you go. Now, well, I've got about 13 minutes to go, 14 minutes to go. So, Sarah and Tim, is Tim coming back in? Are we? Do you need to get away, Nick?
Well, look, I'm here to keep you company if you want to, because I think you're doing an amazing thing. I'm also happy to bugger off and leave you alone if you've got other people you need to talk to before you then take on people.
You relax then.
Oh, no, just carry on. Nick, just keep on going.
Well, Tim.
I'll hang in here with you. I'll hang around. We'll have a chat and catch up with what you need to do, because I don't want people to miss out on this job.
Nick, we're gonna bring the other Nick back tomorrow.
Oh, Nick. So we have 93 Nicks, Nick. So that's what's
happening. Today, you could only come on the show today if you were called Nick. That was the rule.
Oh, fantastic. Is there a Brian Day and a Derek Day?
No, it just seemed today's because I get this screen in front of me, Nick, and then there's the previous Nick, and I was talking to Nick saying thank you to Nick, but now we're talking to Nick, and I thought, oh my God, I'm just calling everyone Nick, but everyone was called Nick. So now I want to say something to Ian up in the roof. Ian, are you there?
Hello.
I want to get the countdown clock just for this end bit. Can we shove that anywhere? And I think can you cut that?
Yes, I can. If I